Hey there, and welcome to my channel. My name is Crafty Kathy, and I'm so happy and thankful that you stopped in to craft and spend a little time with me today. This week, when I was in the wood section in Crafter's Square at Dollar Tree, I came across these cute little boxes, and I've never done DIYs and hacks with these. These are all beautiful, simple, and quick. Each one is under 10 minutes. So let's jump on in. For the first DIY, it is the easiest but my favorite. I've got two glass candlesticks. One I had already painted white, and then I've just got the tops of two of my boxes. I'm going to take all this outside and hit it with the Rust-Oleum 2 times in a flat white. Once the spray paint dries, I bring it inside and I have this beautiful wooden dough bowl. I got this half off after Christmas at the Dollar General, and I'm just going to take my little tops and I'm going to place them kind of in the center. I'm going to take my two little candlesticks that I painted white and place them on top. We're basically going to use the little box tops like risers. Now look at these two beautiful candle rings that I got from Whatnot the other day. I got this from Vintage Bee Designs, I believe is the name. Her name is Melissa, and she has a YouTube channel also. Well, I'm addicted to Whatnot right now, so I've been watching a lot of it. We're going to lay these right over our candlesticks, but by using that square box underneath, it doesn't let it fall down too far so you can still see it. I hope that makes sense, but I'm just going to take some battery-operated candles, and I get these off of Amazon. I'll link all of my Amazon stuff down below. I'm going to flip these on, and to finish this off, I'm simply going to take this beautiful thrifted angel that I have. He's laying on his belly on the very front of the dough bowl. It's sweet and simple, but it's absolutely my favorite. Such beautiful decor. I created this whole vignette for under $10.
So hit me up, you know it's all I'm waiting for. Oh, would you hit me up? I've been waiting my whole life. Oh, for you to hit me up. I've never felt this way. I want to turn back time.
In our second DIY, we are going to take 4 of the bottoms. We don't need the tops for these, just the bottoms. And I'm going to use the Dollar Tree's wood glue. It does not take much of this. And I'm going to glue these 4 pieces together. I'm simply just going to put a little bit of hot glue and a little bit of the wood glue, but make sure that they're not touching because they will cancel each other out and not work at all. I'm just using these little Dollar Tree clamps to clamp them down because Dollar Tree stuff is notorious for not being square, and we don't want any big gaps there, especially since we used a little bit of hot glue. Now I'm just going to clamp all 4 pieces down. That way we're just going to let it totally dry so it will have the best hold that it can possibly have. I waited about 2 hours before I moved on. And even though I used those clamps, I still had some gaps around the top part of this. Like I said, the Dollar Tree stuff is notorious for not being square. So I'm just going to take some spackle. You can get this simple spackle at the Dollar Tree. Mine is from Ace, but it is the exact same thing if you buy it at the Dollar Tree. And we're just going to fill in that little area in the top. It doesn't take much. You're just going to go in the opposite direction of the way that the crack is. That way, it's going to fill it in, and that's all we need. And then you just kind of wipe off the excess that's there. You're going to let this alone and let it dry for about 30 minutes, and then it's going to be ready to paint. However, I decided not to paint this. I want to use something a little different on this one. I have an IOD mold that I was going to use in a different DIY, and it was kind of bent. So the way that you do this to make it pliable again is just heat it up with your heating tool or your hot gun and put a little bit of pressure on it, and it flattened right out. I set a little heavy jar on it for a few moments so that it would be nice and flat. I took my apothecary label stamps. These are my favorite stamps from IOD. They are small and I love them so much. There's different labels in there. And at first I put this rustic brown color of ink on there. And just as I did, I remembered that this stuff is not permanent. So I'm going to grab my archival ink, which is permanent, and I'm just going to put a little bit on there. Even though it's black, it doesn't matter. I always prefer to use the permanent ink because it's not going to smear as bad. Now, I had already painted my little mold that I had created because, like I said, I was going to use it in a different DIY. It is the color called crinoline, which is a beautiful creamy color. And I'm going to use the word spring. Now, I didn't like the way that S and G looked on there, so I just kind of went right back over it to get it a little bit better. Then I grabbed that ink, that rustic brown color again, and I'm just going to use the pad itself and go all the way around the edges, but it wasn't doing as good of a job as I wanted it to do, so I grabbed my little dauber or my shading brush, whatever you want to call this thing. I think I got this off of Temu, and I just kind of went all around it just to kind of dirty it up a little bit and make it look a little bit vintagey. Now, I just put literally like a little dot of the crinoline out because there was a few spots where I let my ink smear, and I didn't like that. Now we're going to place this mold on the top part of our box, but I just cut a little popsicle stick down so that we could have a good area for this to stick to. I'm going to place it right there in the center. Now, instead of painting my box, I actually wanted to leave it the color that it is. This is going to be like a shelf sitter almost, where you can just kind of set it up and display whatever you want to inside of it. I didn't like the way that the rustic brown was looking. It just wasn't doing enough for me. So I took my small pad of my black archival ink, and this is the permanent ink, and I'm just kind of going all around the front of this box, and I go along the edges too and around the top. Now, with me just kind of shading it in like this, it did mask that areas where I had to fill it in with that spackle. Then I just filled it up with some beautiful things that make me think of spring. And I hope you like this one.
Oh, would you stay for me if I let you in? So secretly, yeah, my melody, yeah, my melody. Would you stay with me if I let you in? I just like the way you are, yeah.
Now on our third DIY, we only need one of the boxes, and I'm going to show you how to cover up these small areas. Now, I got the ones that had the unicorns on it, the most that I could find, because if you can see, there was only 3 stars. There wasn't much that you had to cover up to make it a whole box. You know what I'm saying? Some of them have the little llamas on them, and there's just a lot more area that you have to fill in. So I took a small piece of masking tape and put it over that area where my 3 stars were. And then all I'm going to do is just flip this over, take my spackle, and I'm going to fill in those 3 little stars. Now, if you can only find the llamas and then there's a few other things, it's okay. It's no big deal. You just have a little bit more taping up to do. But I like these because it's just such a small area to cover up. So I'm just filling it in with my spackle, and I'm going to let it dry for about 30 minutes. Then I'm going to take my finger sander and I'm just going to sand it down to make those areas that are kind of indented in there, I guess you could say, like where the unicorn picture is, to kind of take it off there. It's really not very far down in there, so literally one coat of chalk paint can cover that up. And if you want it a little bit thicker paint, just add some baking soda to it, and it's going to cover up that whole area on the front. I'm going to use DIY paint in the color called Gypsy Green. It's my favorite green color. And I'm going to paint this whole box. I'm going to paint it inside and out and all over. Oh, there's nothing like getting a brand new paintbrush. And I figured I'd leave the sound in there for you guys that like that ASMR. Now, DIY paint is clay-based. I like it better than chalk-based paint. It's my personal favorite paint. It's really thick. It usually takes one coat to cover anything up. But I did go over this with 2 coats, simply because that had that little unicorn on the front, and I wanted to make sure every bit of it gets covered up. So I went over my whole box. I went over all the sides and the inside and the outside with the 2 coats of Gypsy Green. I get my DIY paint, my IOD, my pentart products. Most of the things that you see me use on my channel, I get from Lori over at Milton's Daughter. And I always leave her information in the comment section and in the description box so that she's super easy to find. That way, in case you want to try out any of these products, you can hit her up. But I promise you, once you try this DIY paint, you'll probably never go back to any other paint again. I'm just warning you. I hope you guys have had a good week. I've had a terrible week. I lost 2 of my chickens this week. I lost Fro Baby and Frida Fantasia. I'll talk about it just a little bit later, but right now I'm still just devastated, and it's so hard to talk about my babies. So I'm going to take the color beadboard, and I also have this rice paper that I did get from Lori at Milton's Daughter. I just wet the end of a very small paintbrush and go around the picture that I want to get out. I wasn't sure which picture I wanted to put on this, so I went around 2 different images. When you wet the rice paper like this with a little paintbrush, it causes it to get wet, so it's really easy to tear. Now, when you tear your images like this, it looks so much better when you decoupage, I promise you. If you just cut it like with scissors straight across, it never looks as good as it does when you just tear it like this. I usually have a white background when I'm decoupaging, but I wasn't sure what I was going to do when I was painting my box green. So what I'm going to do is just simply take the color beadboard by DIY paint and paint the backs of these, and then just let it dry for a few minutes. And once it dries, I wanted to show you the difference it makes whenever it does have a white background. It really makes your image pop. Look at the difference between the one that I'm holding that I painted white and then the other. It's just so much brighter and more vivid. My favorite way to decoupage is with a glue stick, and I have 2 different kinds. I have the purple one, which is washable, and this white one here is a permanent bond. The one that's purple is not a permanent bond, but I promise you, if you put it down, your stuff is not going to go falling off or anything like that. Even when I use this one that's not permanent, this purple one, it literally stays on until I want it to come off and I peel it up. But the reason why I do use the one that's not permanent most of the time is because I change out my decor a lot, and I don't want it to be permanent all the time. I like to be able to just pull it off and change it up. So I'm putting this cute little chicken, Mama Hen here, that's talking. She's just the talk of the town, and she's spreading all kinds of gossip on the phone there. And she's got her little eggs in front of her, and she is so adorable. I just start off in the middle and kind of work my fingers outward. I was going to use this little mushroom that came in a pack from Dollar Tree, but you can even use something like this. This is just like a little bottle top. I just wanted some type of a little knob on the top. Now, I had knobs that I had purchased, or like a little drawer pull, I guess you could say, from the Dollar Tree, but I felt like it was too big. Most of the things that I tried were too big. So I decided just to grab a little like wooden square. And I'm going to use this pentart antique paste, and I get this from Lori at Milton's Daughter. Now, I love my pentart waxes and antique paste. You guys that watch me all the time know that I just use the far out of these things. I love them. And I'm just putting a little bit on my fingers and going all around my little cube. The cube was small enough to use as like something like a little knob on the top here. And it was just perfect. My favorite way to apply this antique paste is, of course, with my finger, because you're going to get it exactly where you want it to go. And I just went all around the edges, all the way around this box. And I think it turned out so adorable. If you get any where you don't want it to go, just use what's left on your paintbrush and brush back over it. I'm just going to put a little bit of hot glue on my little square and pop it right in the middle. That way it's going to be easy to pull the top off and on, and I can put all kinds of cute little goodies in here. The very last step that I did was to grab my finger sander and very, very lightly go over the edges, because I like that look too. DIY paint is so easy to distress back and make something look really rustic and old and vintagey. And then I grabbed what was left on my little dauber, which is that brown antique paste, and just kind of went around the edges just a little bit more. I hope you like it. And if you stuck with me through all of today's video, I just want to thank you so much for stopping in and chatting and just spending a little bit of time with me today. I really needed a good but quick crafting session, because when I have a bad week or things are just going really rough, if I can go out in my craft room and be by myself and be alone with my thoughts, it doesn't totally take away my broken heart, but it seems that it kind of helps soothe it just a little bit. Thank you, guys. And did you know that if you're on a phone or a tablet, that you can touch my face right here and subscribe to my channel? And I would love for you to do that. Also, if you did enjoy this video, I have another one right here that you can touch on, and it'll take you there in just a second when this one's over. God bless you and your family.